Welcome back to the Mami Show. This is your host Rohit. Today we have Steve, the serial entrepreneur and 10x business coach. Thank you, Steve, for getting into the show.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Awesome. So it's good to have you on. So would you just like to give a quick intro about yourself first, like how you guys started with your multiple businesses, your first business, and now 10x business coach as well?
Well, I think when you look at somebody who, first of all, is going to be coaching, you have to kind of say, what does their history look like? And are they somebody that I could learn from? And I think learning from somebody who has only seen success is something that they've never really seen the hiccups in the world. And I think I've definitely run through a couple roadblocks and car crashes in my business. I started off being self-employed back in 2005, and I built that business up to about 20 employees. And we're doing quite a bit of revenue, which was great. And in 2012, 2014, there was a huge adjustment that happened with the market, where prices went up like crazy, 400%, on material costs. Contractors stopped paying their bills. It was a construction company I owned, and I ended up at the end of the year about $750,000 in the hole in 2012, 2014, in that time frame. Also with a huge lawsuit over my head that was a very complicated, very challenging situation. And so I had to make a decision at that point. I had a young family, 2 kids. My wife was on mat leave at the time. It was very difficult. And so I ended up getting into real estate at that time, and I blew up in real estate, did extremely well. And, so I know what it's like for people to go through humps in their business and what it takes mentally to be able to handle those challenges. That lawsuit ran from you for 10 years. To pay off that debt took some time to get rid of it, just the way the debt was structured. And so it was a very difficult time, but to have the mindset to be able to come and overcome that adversity is something that I really work with people to try to figure that out so that they can, get to that place that they want to get going. And then obviously the strategy to go from, a business that was making nothing to a business making something. That's the hardest thing. I mean, if you talk to any, person who's, a billionaire or anything like that, like I work with Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone and Brandon Dawson will say, I'll buy a business before I'll start a business, right? Because that inertia to try to get a business off the ground takes so much energy. But if you can have that inertia to break that ground, number one, you become so strong in all the skills required to run a business. But number two is, you can create something that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Grant Cardone was also in the podcast with one of my friend, Peter, a few weeks
Yep,
back. You may, yeah, I think you saw that. Even I was thinking to invest into the Cardone Capital as a
you should.
non-credited investor.
Yep.
Even I haven't invested yet. I still have invested in Dubai so far in real estate, but not in the US so far. But yeah, I think like I will do it later. But yeah. And so you used to work with Grant Cardone in the real estate industry. Have you invested with it?
No, I still work with Grant Cardone. So part of my 10x business coaching is I tie to a lot of the methodologies that are tied in with Grant Cardone's business systems. Because let's face it, I mean, you can try to reinvent the wheel. I always say this is that you can if I'm trying to get from my place to say if I'm in the edge of a forest in a jungle, and there's a town that's maybe 100 kilometers away, I have 2 choices. I can start trying to find a stick and sharpen that stick and then start hacking away at trees and find my way through the forest, or I can just look to my left, pick up the keys that are on the table there, get in the car, drive on the highway, and then get to the city.
Yeah.
Coaching and business models that have been working and proven time and time again is that car and is that street. It costs money. There's no question about it. But hacking through the jungle and getting, stabbed by every single branch and running into all those creepy animals that exist in the jungle, and coming out the other side with some sort of horrible disease, you made it, but you're not the same person on the other side. And sometimes it's for the better and sometimes it could be for the worse. So that's where I look at business systems that are proven to work are something that I think are really critical for a business to have, especially when they're just getting started.
I would like to say about the growth mindset. So you being the serial entrepreneur, you started many businesses, went down as well, made your first million as well, gone multi-million dollars as well. So like journey obviously was a roller coaster, but what do you feel like what it takes to get to that stage, you know?
I think anything could be perceived as easy and anything could be perceived as difficult. I always say, when somebody looks at, is the glass half full, is the glass half empty concept. Have you heard that?
Yeah,
Right.
obviously it's from the childhood, yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously.
exactly. What my statement is, it's both, right? Because if I look and I just say the glass is half full, I'm
Mm.
ignoring the fact that the glass is half empty. If I said the glass is half empty, I'm ignoring the fact that the glass is half full. So I say the glass is both. And that same thing applies when you're looking at a business. When you look at a business could be something very simple that, the concepts are very simple to be successful, but the dedication and the commitment is the hard thing. If I just said to somebody, all you need to do is pick up the shovel and you just got to keep on digging. By day 45, they're going to be tired of digging, but they need to get to day 60 to start succeeding. Right. So that's where they run into the challenges of the idea of, is it a simple concept or is it a hard concept? Most of the concepts in business are not difficult concepts. It's the commitment and the dedication is the challenge. One of the things that Grant talks about, which I really like, is the idea of being obsessed or being average.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that the concept that average is the enemy of being good, and good is the enemy of being great. I can tell you, and believe me, I've fallen into every one of these traps, so I know what it feels like when people hit those. The first time I made $1 million, I'm like, I'd sit back on my laurels. I probably took more vacations than I could have
Yeah.
ever taken, because I was used to making $200,000 to $300,000 a year,
Oh
which
yeah.
is good. Like, that was not bad. And then you hit up to $1 million, you're like, whoa. And now all of a sudden you make decisions that you just don't care. You spend like you
Yeah.
really don't, like it doesn't matter. And you take more holidays. And then when the constriction comes, because every business will have a constriction, when that comes in, all of a sudden that multiplier effect happens and you're like, oh man, that's going to hurt.
Mhm.
And now you've lost all that rhythm. I always put it back to, it's like going to the gym. When I go to the gym, I teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is one of the best things for anybody to do, in my opinion, because it allows you to go full tilt with maximum aggression, with the safety of just somebody going tap and it's done. And so, but the thing that I learned from that is that with commitment, right? Somebody who goes every day builds the muscle memory to do something, so it becomes very easy.
Yeah.
Somebody goes for every day, takes a 6-month break, and then comes back,
No,
is really
that's not a
hard.
case. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Consistency, commitment is a thing in the success. Yeah.
Commitment
And
is probably the most important thing, right? And the other
commitment.
thing too is also setting your goals, right? Like, I think a lot of times people set their goals on their where they want to get to, but
Hmm.
they don't set the goals and their activities of what they need to do to get to that goal. So they're maybe unreasonable with their goals, which is great, but they're also not unreasonable with themselves with their actions. So they have to be so obsessed with themselves to overperform with their activity and be micro focused on their approach to what they're doing to make sure they're seeing maximum.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome. So even like having a goal and having a system to reach that goal, let's say someone wanted to hit the $1 million in net profit or in net income, so someone has to make 3 to 4 grand a day in order to hit that thing, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
So,
I think the idea of when you're saying that you break it down into that daily task, I think that's perfect. I mean, sometimes, like if you look at a real estate agent, for example, real estate agents aren't going to make a 3 grand a day, but they're going
yeah,
to make 60 grand or 90 grand in a month.
yeah,
And so then that 90 grand once a month, or two $45,000 deals, is what's
yeah,
going to hit them. So I think you're 100% right in knowing the math,
yeah.
because if you know the math of the number of transactions you need to do in order to hit that, then you say, well, what activity do I need to do to generate those number of transactions? And how successful do I have to be? So in other words, how many transactions I have to do to hit this number of transactions in this number? And if you can figure all that stuff out, you're all of a sudden your business becomes very predictable.
Exactly. And like first $1 million, when it's and then money makes money, that for
Mhm.
sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely. You get more traction once you have, more money in the bank account, because you can create more attention.
yeah,
Like, let's face it, if you can't advertise because $50 is expensive for you, it's going to be very hard for you to start trying to create attraction into your business. You go to an event and you can't put food on the table for the attendees to your event that they can nibble on because
Yeah.
you're running at such a low budget. That's going to be very difficult.
I think being rich and having something and not having something is obviously about the mindset only. Like, I mean, according to me, anyone can do that. And anyone can do anything, to be honest. If they have something to do so, they can. I mean, like, we obviously were the normal people. You also passed out from the school. I also passed out from the school. Same professors, same everything, you know. And but things change, you know.
Well,
We
I actually never graduated from university.
see that, you know. But still, you
No,
hit.
and
But you
I
still
never
hit
graduated from
$1 million,
university.
obviously. You know,
Yeah.
even
I
some.
think the funny thing is everybody's going to make $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, like, anybody can do that.
No, everybody will. Like in North America,
Mhm.
everybody will make $1 million. And do you know why? Because some people, so if I make $50,000 a year,
Mhm.
and if I work 20 years,
No, no, no. I'm not
I just
talking
made
about
$1 million.
that's pretty easy. I'm talking about annually, you know. I'm not talking about the
But
whole.
see, to me, that's called compression,
That,
right?
making a
So if
million.
you can compress $1 million in 1 year is very different than making $1 million over 20 years.
20 years is a long way. I mean, like, anyone can make $1 million in a whole life, you know. Anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. But if you can compress the time to make it,
Mm.
that's the biggest thing. So speed also, when you talk about being successful, speed is something that's extremely important. So if I want to make, say next year, my goal is 3 million for next year, annualize,
Mm.
right? I need to be able to compress time to
Yeah,
make 3 million instead of in 3 years, make it in 1 year. So I have to figure out how do I create that compression to happen. And that comes through scaling,
exactly.
right?
Awesome. So tell me, like, what 2024 will look like for the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial mindset, you know?
That's actually a really great question.
Yeah.
When you look at 2023, the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, it's going to be an eye opener for most business owners. We see this all across, North America, and I'm sure it's something that resonates around the world. A lot of people had an amazing, first quarter, even second quarter. Third quarter, they started watching their sales start to decline, and fourth quarter, they're coming in going, "Where is everybody?"
Mhm.
And they're probably seeing delinquency on payments and a cancellation of contracts. And now all of a sudden, the part of the industry that they didn't really focus on before is now becoming the priority, which is sales,
Hmm.
right? So they need to be able to sell so effectively now to be able to sell, convert, and retain clients in a profitable way because the free money is all gone.
Yeah.
All the bad habits that were learned over the 2 years prior of running a business, anybody who became massively successful in the last 2 years, it's very difficult to say that that's a massive success because the market did a lot of the carrying. Now, if you say you're successful over real leaders and real market leaders in each individual vertical coming out in 2024, that's who's it's going to really define who it is the market leader, because success is going to be a lot more difficult. The biggest challenge in 2021, 2022 was, could I get a product? Could I find an employee to be able to just ship that product or build that product? And that's pretty much it. And do we have to wear masks or not? I mean, those were the business problems. Like, what is our COVID policy? I mean, these are the things that people had to focus on. Now it's, can I find somebody who's going to buy my stuff?
You made the stuff, now you have to sell it. If no one gonna buy, how are you gonna make money?
Well, inventories are starting to go up for people now, right? I mean, the gone are the days where you drive by the car lot and there's no cars because they've all been sold and or they've all been pre-ordered. When people said, "Yeah, you want a car? Yeah, it's a 1.5 years," and you're supposed to accept that as a truth. Now, all the people who sat back there, all smug, like, "Hey, you got to wait 1.5 years," and they felt that it was they're entitled to say that. Now
Mhm.
people are starting to back off from that and start to offer service and value,
And even from
which I
the
think is great. I think
yeah,
it's great.
I got the thing. And even from the $1 million point, I watched the Grant show as well. How to make $1 million in 90 days. You watched that? Discovery
Oh,
guy.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's very good.
It was very good. Like, he hit the million
Yeah.
dollar, he hit the
Yeah, that
valuation
was the undercover. He did Undercover Billionaire is the
undercover
one show that he
billionaire.
did.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and that was very well done.
he built the business in 90 days worth of $5.4 million. Yeah, more than what he thought of and more than what he committed, you know. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
it's
But
cool.
the thing is, if you look at how he did everything, it was brilliant, you know. And the thing is, a lot of people think that he is a sales coach. He's a business coach, right? Because what he does is he shows the importance of marketing. He
Mhm.
shows the importance of creating an offer that allows you to hit the target that you need to get to. He shows you that prices don't matter, and
Yeah,
he shows you how to sell, right?
exactly. He always used to say, like context is equals to contracts, first thing.
Yep.
And like if someone is getting started from the scratch or someone is getting started from the bottom, building a business, a person should has to be very frugal about spending, That's the main thing.
You know, I think to a point, I would agree with you. I think if you think with a scarcity mindset, you can put yourself into problems, right? And what I'm not saying is go out and blow money willy-nilly. I think you need to identify when you're spending, when are you spending and when are you investing? When you're spending, that category should be eliminated,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're a new business. Just eliminate that category. Live in your mom's basement, whatever it is. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Just
yeah,
keep it cheap. When you're
exactly.
investing, what is the risk and what is the return for every dollar you put out? And if the risk and return are not in alignment, then you don't have the authority or the ability to be able to do it. And that's where you said, like, when you have $1 million, as net profit, and you're sitting with, a few $100,000 sitting in the bank account, that $50 spend, you're not going to notice it as much.
It never gonna count, like if someone is making like 4 5 grand a day or maybe 10 grand a day, he can just spend like 50 bucks, like 100 200 bucks in a just a one meal cannot be like counted, to be honest, because he can make
Yeah.
another few other minutes. That's to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You've been in real estate. Like, what tips do you have for someone who just wanted to get into real estate? What someone should know, What's the best
Yeah,
way?
absolutely. And I think it's a great question, especially given the time frame right now of what real estate looks like. This is the first time I live in Canada, and this is the first time Canada's ever seen a downturn market in real estate of any significant amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's one of those things that not every deal is going to win, and you have to recognize that when you're getting into real estate. And I think the first thing when you're getting into real estate is know your numbers, right? If you don't know your numbers, don't buy the property if you're buying it from an investment perspective. Personally, I think if it's even for you living in the house, if you don't know your numbers, don't buy it. Numbers are so important. But I think too many real estate agents and even mortgage brokers, too many real estate agents and mortgage brokers both operate on the perspective of, they just try to satisfy getting the client to buy a house. They don't just go through and satisfy, do the numbers actually make sense? And I think if you can focus on that element, and when I say numbers make sense, when you're buying a property, you have to figure out where your risk is. Risk is extremely important. And then where your return is. So if you buy a property, are you making it on cash flow because your
Mm-hmm.
rents are higher than your costs? Well, that's cash flow. Are you making on principal pay down because maybe you're cash flow neutral, but maybe the portion of the mortgage payment that pays down the property, that's your forced savings. That's your principal pay down, and that goes into your pocket, in your land bank is what I call it. The last thing is the property going to go up in value? Are you improving the property, or is the market got some upward inertia? So if you're looking at any of those three different buckets, and then you have to say, what's the risk in each of those? Because somebody who speculated on real estate, who say bought like a pre-construction unit, say 3 years ago, and thought it was going to be worth mad cash now, and all of a sudden it's worth less than what they bought it for, they're in a predicament, because maybe it doesn't even cash flow once they close on it.
Yeah. Even I think you heard of Robert Kiyosaki as well.
Yeah,
Even
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
if,
Yeah, he's great.
yeah, even Grant do the same thing too. He took the money from the people, obviously, and then buy the property. Even Robert also used to say like use debt to buy the property.
Yeah, I think I'm with
Do
them
you think?
I'm
Do you
with them
think
on that to a point, like
complete sense?
where
Sense.
Grant will talk about that, and Grant will talk about that out of one side, but then if you actually look how he funds it, like he puts a lot of money up for the properties,
Yeah.
right? And then he gets it taken out by the people who are in it because the property's making enough money. He knows his numbers. So again, he's leading with numbers, because when he's so financed based on, institutional money and syndicated money, or I won't use the word syndicated, or just raised capital, we'll call it,
Oh yeah.
through Cardone Capital. So if
Mm-hmm.
he raises the money through Cardone Capital, there's debt over here and there's debt over here.
Yeah,
The property's got to be able to carry both of those debts and still be cash flow positive because he wants a dividend out every month,
exactly.
right? So he knows his numbers. You know, he's a very smart cookie when it comes to real estate.
That's why it's worth more than $2 billion now, I think. His
Yeah, he's got a very good net worth. Yeah.
portfolio of
Yeah.
like properties now. I saw that maybe last year it's $2 billion plus. Now it must
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, is in the States, like the type of capital, type of properties he's buying, you know, a lot of countries don't have class of properties. Like he's got class A residential properties where, you know, somebody who's professional is going to live in those properties at en masse, like, you know, 150, 300 unit properties, which is fantastic. You know, whereas some countries don't have that. They only have like class B, class C properties at that magnitude. So he's really found a great niche, and he only buys them when they're complete. He doesn't build them. He doesn't go through the building phase, nothing like that. He just typically a rental rehab, and that's it.
Gotcha. Do you want to talk about stocks? No.
I'd love to talk a little bit about stocks and Forex.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's the one thing only you can have. You can obviously have a big money on. Yeah, stocks. You say you have experience with that thing, like you got 15% annually. You know,
Yeah,
whatever.
and you
You
made
just
fun of me for that, actually.
I haven't yet, but I think it's kind of like looks like fun because 15% is very low, you know, as per the stocks. And even if you were managing, then only.
Yeah. It's it definitely, I was spending way too much time managing them to make that little of a return. Yeah.
And even though that feels so much mentally and emotionally as well, when you see your portfolio sometimes go up and sometimes go down, and when you feel like sometimes the percentage seems like can be like this, so it seems like that point as well, you know.
I think that's a big thing too. I mean, for me, the idea of, you know, watching everything tank and being able to like, you know, mentally cross the chasm of the dip on something that, you know, I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the stomach for it. And, you know, as the conversation we were having, you know, pre podcast, it was, you know, you've got a stomach for it, and
Yeah.
to be able to handle that.
I haven't got, see, a year back it was nothing, you know. I haven't. So I was like 18. So when I was 18, I invested my first few dollars in the, like, in obviously in the Forex only. But then I lost it for the next 2, 3 years. At the age of 19, 20, 21, I haven't did anything like that. But 22 was the thing when I heard of once again, man, what the hell is this thing? Like green and yellow profits, 1 grand, 1.2K, 3K, 4K, $500, $300. What the thing is this? And it's like people are like actually making money out of this in just from the phone, having laptop screen. That's it. Then what I did is like I started doing copy trading. I just invested first 25 grand. No, 20, no, $25. That's it. First day. You know,
Yep.
after the 2 days, I saw that $25 went $26. I saw that's cool, man. 2 days back. Then in the third day, I invested another $100. Then in bed, like, you know, it goes up like, oh man, I got $3 in another day, you know,
Yeah.
so it's compounding. Then what I did is I invested $1,000. I was just completing adding a little more zeros, a little more numbers, you know. So I was
Yep.
did that. Then for the first month, it was amazing, getting everything. I was getting greedy. Then, oh man, now it's working. Now it's something like, so I should do one thing. I should like take some huge risk and do the stuff like that. Then just because of those things, I must have blown my 10 to 15 accounts in total so far.
Oh my goodness.
10 to 15 accounts in total so far since last year. Yeah. Accounts worth of $5,000. In total, you can see like $10,000 or $10,000, $15,000 worth of my saving. I'm blown that. That's how I came to the point. Like, no, man, this is not. You have to get slow, a little risk free, and that's gonna be fine. Because
So how do you make it risk free in the Forex space?
see, I think you just have to consider like making just 1% a day from the total equity, whatever you have. That's not more than
Yeah.
that. Let's say you were trading from 10 grand account, you know, so just expect like making around $100 or maybe somewhere like $300 a day. That's it. And you can
Mhm.
easily make it. Don't take another trade until unless your first trade is closed. That's it. Either in profit
Yeah,
or something.
yeah.
Even I already told you, like I took the trade yesterday on gold too. That went so wrong, Even I closed the trade on 2600 on loss.
Wow.
It's it's just the beginning. Even it's just the beginning. I'm just in the first, second year of mine. I like obviously it will go up and I will. Yeah, it's just like and like when it was getting started, this is a thing which I think I can do. Like
Now, do you exit all your trades at the end of the day, or do you roll them
no, no,
over?
no, no. So until and unless I feel like this is a good time to trade, and like obviously, like when sometime we trade, it go against us. So just keep it. Sometimes over the weekend as well, keep it.
And do you have a favorite currencies that you trade in, or?
I do have just like 4, 5. I do trade gold, silver as well, but low, not much. But the favorite of one of mine is like GBP, CAD, AUD, GBP, JPY, USD, JPY. That's the one.
So is the Canadian dollar going up or going down over the next 90 days?
I don't know, like I used to. So how we trade is how I trade is like we use the MyFX book, the calendar that gives us complete alerts. What's gonna happen with Fed, what's gonna happen with policy, interest rate, what's gonna
Hmm.
come in the next 1 hour, 2 hour. That's real important. When you see your money with -$9,000, -$9,500 running in a red manner, or just like I would say like being risk free, take low risk,
Yep.
increase the account balance because when the account balance will increase, then you can obviously take the bigger risk as well. I
Yep.
know people like in the show, I think I have onboarded one of the trader who has 7 figures account right now. I have 6 figure account right now this year, but next year I will obviously try to. Yeah. So he was obviously doing the forex as well. He used to do crypto mining too. He got a big house of like just for the crypto mining, like making a ton of money just from mining. Yeah. I haven't did that. Just doing that.
Yeah, I tried to the crypto mining. I wasn't I didn't what did I use? I just used, what is it? Hash something or other. I forget the name of the
Yeah.
software.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I just kind of got away with it, and I didn't really push too much into it, especially after the adjustment in pricing. Do you do
Right.
Bitcoin stuff at all? Any cryptos or no?
I don't I do have my one project, Dia Friends. That's the complete crypto project. It's not launched yet, but I haven't did the crypto trading yet. I used to do forex only, these
Hmm.
kind of stocks thing only. Yeah. Yeah. So crypto, I think Bitcoin seems like very horrible to me. That's why I don't do that.
Yeah. I just think it's not something that it can actually be used in a real currency situation. And that's why I don't look at it as a real currency.
People make a lot
Like,
of
I
money.
can't go buy a loaf of bread with crypto. I mean, I'm sure there's some weird grocery store that'll take it, but it's not something
Now,
that's in cycle.
yeah. Dubai is full of that. Dubai is full of crypto. You know that? Dubai is full of crypto. You can buy the car from crypto. You can buy the house from crypto. You can do anything with crypto. Yeah.
Nah, I've never played in that space.
Any transaction. Make $1 million transaction from just that code only. That's it. You lost $1
That's
million.
amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I did not do well. I bought and sold a little bit of the Ethereum and Bitcoin, and I took a bath on those when they took the big hit. So it was never a thing for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So yeah, thank you so much for getting into the show and having your wonderful insights on the show. And
Man, great chatting with you. I love your energy, and I love the fact that you're in your early 20s and pushing like this. I think that's inspirational for people, and keep you getting your message out. It's amazing.
awesome.